Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning, either in person or watching via the Facebook live stream. My name's Mary Bluchard, and I'm the President and Vice Chancellor here at Mount Saint Vincent University. As we gather today, I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the Mi'kmaq people of the territory on which we meet. Mount Saint Vincent University is built on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. We also pay respect to the Mi'kmaq knowledge embedded in this land and to the elders past, present, and future. We're here to mark the beginning of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, a time to really raise awareness about the devastating impacts of sexual assault and focus on the measures we can all take to stop sexual violence and support our survivors. The Mount is committed to taking action to prevent sexual violence. We do this in a number of ways, including through policy, consultation, education, awareness, and much more. We work to provide a community with relevant information and education about sexual violence prevention and raise awareness through poster campaigns and other visual presentations on campus. Later today, a new flag will fly on the flagpole attached to the front of the Seton Academic Building. And you can see the flag that's just being unfolded there in front of us. And this will fly on the flagpole right in front of our Seton Academic Centre on campus. This is the first year a Sexual Assault Awareness Month flag will fly on the Mount campus as a reminder to all who see it that sexual violence remains a significant issue in our society. It will also serve as a symbol of the Mount's commitment to sexual violence prevention. It's important to note that if you or someone you know has been a victim of sexual violence, please know that there are supports available, and please visit our website for more information. Another way the university attempts to reach our audiences is through social media. You may recall that last year, the Mount shared a video entitled "Time to Act: 5 Ways to End Sexualized Violence." In case you haven't seen it yet, we'll play it for you now on the screens. The prevalence of sexualized violence in our society is a very, very serious problem. We often ask, what can I do as one person to really make a difference, to put an end to sexualized violence?
Preventing sexualized violence takes all of us, working in ways big and small, to create a culture of safety and respect.
Here are just a few ways that you can help to bring an end to sexualized violence.
Challenge victim blaming. If somebody is sexually assaulted, it is never their fault. What they were wearing, how much they were drinking, their sexual history, none of it matters. Sex without consent is sexual assault.
Believe and support people who have been harmed. Survivors of sexual assault needs to be listened to and believed.
Always ask for consent. Consent is a clearly communicated and enthusiastic agreement.
Just because someone has consented once, it does not mean they consent to future sexual activity. If someone is incapacitated due to drugs or alcohol, or for any other reason, they cannot give consent.
Say no to gender stereotypes. Messages like "man up," "act like a lady" are oppressive and fail to acknowledge other genders. It's also important that we use gender-neutral language. For example, saying "ladies and gentlemen" is not inclusive. It's time that we see gender as a spectrum.
Get involved and take action. Sexualized violence can be prevented by engaged bystanders. We can prevent harmful attitudes and behaviors from taking the opportunity to escalate into violence. Take every opportunity to promote healthy, respectful relationships.
Sexualized violence is primarily about power inequities and is connected to all forms of oppression. To address sexualized violence, we also need to stand up against racism, sexism, classism, ableism, and all other forms of discrimination. Treat all people with dignity and respect.
We're all responsible to address sexualized violence. We need to work together to create positive change. It's time to act.
Such a great video, isn't it? The messages are simple, yet very powerful, and focus on the actions each of us can take to really make a difference. Challenge victim blaming, ask for consent, say no to gender stereotypes, get involved, take action, confront racism and oppression. A big thank you to the Mount Sexual Violence Prevention Committee for creating such a powerful and informative video. For those of you who may not be aware, the Mount established a Sexual Violence Prevention Committee a little over a year ago now to enhance the university's work on the prevention of and response to sexualized violence. The committee reports directly to me and includes students, faculty, staff, and community representatives from the Avalon Sexual Assault Center. I'm sincerely grateful for the work of this committee, and I thank them for their dedication to this extremely important topic. Another critical piece of work led by that committee was the revision of the university's policy in relation to sexual assault. After hearing from our students, consulting with student groups across the country, and working with subject matter experts here on campus and in the broader community, the new policy against sexual assault has been created, and I'm happy to announce that the new policy was recently approved by the Mount's Board of Governors. To tell us a little more about the new policy, we will now hear from Paula Berry, our Associate Vice President of Student Experience and Chair of the Mount Sexual Violence Prevention Committee. Paula?
Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming to launch our new policy, 15 months of hard work in the making. You know, students had brought forward a couple of concerns about our policy, I guess about 14 or 15 months ago, and when we first sat down as our policy group, we thought, okay, there are 3 clauses that we really need to tackle and improve upon. But as we started really doing some research and working with our colleagues across the province, we realized that we really needed to do a bit of an overhaul. We took a lot of information from our own students and faculty, but also from our turn, which was the National Student Action Plan to End Campus Sexual Violence, and those recommendations were very helpful to all of us in revising policies over the last couple of years. So I'll just highlight a few of the big changes. The policy itself is very thorough, so we have created this guide. And we hope that this will really help, especially for students, faculty, and staff who may be responding to a disclosure and want to guide a student through what the process would look like in reporting sexual assault to the university. One of the big distinctions that we make in the new policy is to really outline the differences between making a disclosure and making a report, and to demonstrate to students that if you make a disclosure, you know, we've confirmed you absolutely will have all supports and accommodations available to you, regardless of how you decide to proceed beyond that. A couple of other just sort of key pieces that we took from our turn that our students were very supportive of. One was a concern that universities were using information they were gaining from reports of sexual assault to discipline students in relation to alcohol and drugs. So we have a clause in the policy absolutely confirming that no information that we receive through a disclosure or report would be used in a disciplinary fashion. And the other that our students were quite concerned about was around confidentiality. And so the students asked us to clarify what would be a time of that exceptional circumstance where the university may decide to proceed with an allegation without the consent or expressed cooperation of a complainant. So we have a lengthy piece in the policy to help students understand why and when that would rarely happen. And the big piece was historically, and this is true on many campuses and sort of a change that's happening across the country, is that if a formal report of sexual assault was made at the Mount, it was referred to our Student Judicial Committee. And the Student Judicial Committee, formed of faculty and students, which changes every year typically, would meet and essentially conduct a hearing. And for all kinds of reasons I probably don't have to express to you, this was really problematic, both for our students and for the members of our committee. So in the new policy, sexual assault complaints will be handled by a very competent and well-trained investigator. And we're actually working with our colleagues across the entire province of Nova Scotia to provide that level of training and sort of forming a community of practice in the province so that people can call upon one another. And we hope that this will really encourage students to think, to feel more confident in coming forward to the university with much fewer concerns. So I've pointed out that we have this handy guide. Also, I think many of you have found we do have the ribbons, the teal ribbons, supporting Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I'd also love to take this opportunity to call upon Madeline Mitchell, who's our Vice President of Student Advocacy with the Mount Students Union, and also a member of our Sexual Violence Prevention Committee, and has been really instrumental in helping with these changes this year, to say a few words from a student perspective. Thanks.
Students not unlike myself. Oh, you can't hear me? Okay. Students are putting themselves at the front of the conversation about sexual assault policies, supports for survivors, and the need for consent education. Campaigning and talking about supports for survivors, ensuring student voices are heard by the university decision makers, and dedicating student programming to consent education are just some of the ways students are involved in this conversation. We know we need to advocate for more consent education, not only at the university level, but at the public education level. Students in public education are not receiving adequate sex and consent education. Students in universities are not receiving adequate sex and consent education. Adults within the general population of our society are not receiving adequate sex and consent education. We teach not to get assaulted. We teach young women to be careful of what they are wearing, how much they are drinking, not walking in well-lit areas, having tools for self-defense to protect themselves. We teach all of this when simply we should be teaching not to assault other people. But we also need to advocate for university policies that are trauma-informed and survivor-centered. A survivor-centered approach means that all those who are engaged prioritize the rights, needs, and wishes of the survivor. I do feel the new policy against sexual assault and the committee that have helped build and write it have done an excellent job at centering survivors and outlining supports that are offered by our campus and the greater community. But we as a university and a society still have a long way to go. We need to believe and support survivors. We need consent education to be prioritized in all levels of education and accessible to all members of the public. Without this, we rely on policies like this to fill in the gaps that education is not filling.
Thank you, Madeline. And really, to Madeline's point, the work of our committee, we have two sort of sub-working groups. One has been working on the policy development, and one chaired by the lovely Lauren Leal has been working on education and training initiatives. And really, the entire group this year will focus on building awareness of the new policy, helping to build the confidence of our student body that they should be coming forward if they have any concerns around sexual assault, and then the training piece. So we've just figured out a way to build a good consent education piece back into orientation week, and we want to do some training with faculty and staff around especially responding to a disclosure. The first piece, of course, will be to build awareness around the policy. And in order to do that, we have, in Mount Style, created a video. And I think we'll show that now.
The Mount is committed to sexual violence prevention and providing a trauma-informed, survivor-centered response.
After hearing from our students, consulting with student groups across the country, and working with subject matter experts both on our campus and in the broader community, the Mount has created a new policy against sexual assault. Here are the top 3 things we want you to know.
Whether you choose to make a formal report or not, the university's main concern following a disclosure is your safety, security, and well-being. You're entitled to receive supports, including safety planning, counseling, medical services, and potential accommodations to your living, workplace, or classroom arrangements.
Disclosures and reports of sexual assault are separate actions. You can choose to disclose to someone like a friend, classmate, colleague, or healthcare provider, for example. Doing so does not automatically trigger an investigation, and it will not be reported unless you make that decision. A report is a formal complaint of sexual assault that is made to the university for the purposes of initiating an investigation.
You have the right to determine how much information you disclose, when you disclose it, and who you disclose it to. If you choose to make a formal report, the university understands that you may need some time to make your decisions. There is no deadline. You are encouraged to make a report if and when you feel comfortable doing so.
You can find the Mount's new policy against sexual assault, as well as sexual violence prevention resources on the Mount's website.
To promote the new policy and again in an attempt to try to build confidence amongst our student body that we are very prepared to respond adequately to concerns of sexual assault. So that's it, sort of. I'd love to thank all of you for coming today. I would love to give special thanks to Lauren Leal, who coordinated today's events, in addition to all the work that she's done to help us with education and training around sexual violence prevention. And also Ava Zappoli, the co-chair of our Provincial Sexual Violence Committee. Thanks so much for coming today, Ava, to celebrate our new policy and new way forward at the Mount. Thanks, everyone.